We're going to go over each of the traditional races and just kind of go over a tiering of races I think are strong. And I'll just put them in three categories. Kind of strong, meh, and terrible. So I've actually not looked at some of these races in a while, so let's go ahead and do that. So first off, United Empire. One big thing is in disharmony, right? It's not just the affinity. So the United Empire affinity, right, is just a 0 to 100% tax rate gives you a 0 to 60% production bonus. Um, and in vanilla, right, this is all that would be different among the races. Everything else would be the same if you customize based on affinity. But in disharmony, United Empire actually gets additional bonuses. So let's just start the game and check out what the additional bonuses are. Um, the bonuses are split into two categories. One is just ship bonuses and two research bonuses. So if we look here, right, the ship bonuses, you can just mouse over all the orange on the bottom here. Your first ship, of course, you already have your Corvette. And for the United Empire, your Corvettes, any support modules, which are here, cost 25% less tonnage. What that means is obviously if support module was 10 weight, it would be, or let's say it's 20 weight here, and this is exactly it. This would weigh 20. It's going to be 25% less, so it only weighs 15. Same thing with armor, repair engines, and so on. And the problem with this is, hey, that's a great bonus, but Corvettes are very small ships, and usually you don't put support modules on them. Sometimes later on you might put a power module, so make sure that might be useful to save 5 tons. But really, this is kind of a joke bonus. Um, Moving on to the other United Empire ships. This one has 5. Okay, so um, basically, when you build your destroyers cost 5% less than a regular destroyer. So uh, destroyers cost about the same as corvettes. So if you have, if you're going to add a corvette, the base cost is 20. So 5% less is you literally have, it's going to cost 19 to build a destroyer instead, right? Um, it's not very much, but if you add things onto it, the bonus still carries through. So as you can see, even your base ship here, the Defender, which is a Corvette, costs 40, right? Twice as much, and you can put more tonnage on. So it's a slight bonus. That's okay, but 5% really isn't very meaningful on a production scale. So if you go on, yeah, so the cruisers, this one's very good. Um, 20, anything that makes your any kind of bonus that lets you get more weapons or cheaper weapons is always great. More weapons obviously means per ship and per fleet class. You have more punch, and then punch per ship, so to speak, which lowers your upkeep cost and increases your fleet power. Uh, and cheaper weapons means you can just produce the ships, or you can produce a greater amount of ships. And notice this isn't cheaper weapons, so your cruisers may be more expensive, but it's well worth it in terms of it's always good to have stronger ships if you can load more onto the ships. Similarly, your destroyer is kind of like uh, sorry, your battleship is kind of like your destroyer, and that it's 15% less to build this ship, which is significantly more. Um, well, 3 times more cost savings. So if this costs 100, it'll only cost 85 in terms of total industry cost. And finally, similarly for your dreadnoughts are only 70% of the cost of a regular dreadnought. So those are the United Empire regular bonuses. And anything else in orange also indicates it's a special ratio bonus. So let's go ahead and look at that. So I consider United Empire actually to be a weaker race. Reason being, you so all the races, or nearly all the races, have a very low tier tech, unique tech. This allows your industry to dust conversion to increase from 1/3 efficiency to 1/2 efficiency, so half rather than a third of your industry output gets converted to dust. Problem is, when playing this game, should rarely be using this. Almost always, you want your industry to be uh, poured into science conversion. The only time you use industry to dust is if you're warring. But if you're warring, you usually want a timing attack, or in a prolonged war, this might be okay. But the factors in war aren't so much dust per turn as the factor of surprise and military techs. So I'd much rather your ships be much better, right, than that. So to put it a different way, the United Empire ships are decent in terms of they're cheaper. You can upkeep the ships better, right? But they don't have real military boosts up here. They don't have stronger weapons. You'll notice there's nothing orange up here, and your ships aren't stronger, faster, or anything like that until the very, very top here, right? Until the end game, which you never really reach, unless you're having lots of fun. But you can see the military orange text here, basically, right? This is this effect is if I have economic victory going on, if I have lots of money, then my fleets do more damage. Oh, this is, you know, more siege capacity. Um, when invading, this just is stronger bombers, more armor, and more defenses, and stronger fighters. These are all top tier techs, and um, especially against computers, but even in multiplayer, you usually end the game around here, tech wise. Maybe you'll get to tier 3, but almost never tier 4, and definitely I've never seen a game drag on to this tier of weapons. So for practical purposes, there's no bonus for United Empire weapon-wise. Um, it's like saying uh, if you're starting a war, oh, just wait. And another point is basically if the game does drag out that long, people know, well, you do get these bonuses way later on. So the danger of having a military tech way later is if you get to that point, people will want to team you. It's more of a danger if your techs are earlier, but if they're early enough, people can't do anything about it. Okay, let's move on to the other orange text. So this is just moved earlier in a tree. Um, Effectively, it's just increasing economy, right? And another problem with this is to build the star system improvement, right, for the additional trade, you need Orcalex. Orcalex you don't get until here. So, yeah, you might have this earlier, and I suppose you could get Wasteless Supply Chain, but you really aren't relying on helium, gas planets, basically, the really high tier planets here for population growth. The way population usually grows is you'll have your tier 1 or 2 planets produce the food, and once they cap out, your excess population, it just goes to fill the extra planets. So I don't consider this to be a particularly strong tech. Um, this one, huh. Empire, what improvement? I've actually never gotten it. I don't play United Empire very much because I consider them weak. Let's see. 1% of Empire's influence was added to dust and production. I don't know exactly what that does. It seems okay, but I don't. What I mean is, I don't know what Empire influence is, or quantitatively. Uh, Here, this in theory is good, but it costs 500 to build, and it just increases strategic resources as well as doubles the strategic resource FID bonus. So each strategic resource, right? Titanium, does it show it here? It's somewhere else, but essentially each of these strategic resources will increase either your production or science by a certain percentage. Getting this all the way here allows you to double um, those bonuses on any planet with those strategic resources. And I believe that's it. United Empire, you've got this wonky thing where effectively the higher tax rate you have, the more production you'll have. Except when you have higher taxes, you'll see you get unhappy, of course. So it's almost working against you. And this is the main reason I think it's weak is usually you like to have the lower tax rate to increase production. Um, going from content to happy to ecstatic, or right, increases your production. But when you're playing United Empire, often you want to be content, and you really have to jigger it around. So also, it's considered somewhat of a noob race in the sense that you're able to not lose too much production by lowering taxes as well. If you think about it the opposite way, in terms of rather than think of it as a bonus, think of it as uh, the lower your taxes are, the less production you'll have. Um, but yeah, so that's how United Empire is set up. Consider them weak. Um, so let's move on to some other races. Oh, right. So I guess one other part is for United Empire, just going over their abilities. So I can understand why the base race has businessmen, but if you're playing AI or people, the best way to make money, as shown in another video, isn't actually to have additional dust per system. It's the best way to make money in this game actually is have trade routes and make peace with everybody. So you want to take merchants too, and depending on how hard you're going, 1 or 2 levels of diplomats to increase that bonus. I usually just take 1 because the second level costs 9, and I don't think that it's that accretive. Otherwise, dust impaired is fine. Businessmen, eh. I actually go the other way, right? Rather than businessmen, I always take spendthrifts because I entirely rely on trade routes. And this dust application on the system, unless they patched it, right? Where'd it go? Spendthrifts? It's only the system generation of dust, meaning the planets within the system's generation of dust. It does not impact your trade routes. So if you're going trade routes, you might as well just take spendthrifts. And dust is the least important resource in the game. It's basically something where if you have it, it's nice, but you really don't rush production all that much. And when you do, it's just much more efficient to use merchants point-wise, because as you can see, taking merchants and spendthrifts together is net 0 points. Okay. Secondly, strong allies I think is overpriced. It's very good for early game ships, right? But as United Empire, you saw their techs are later game, and the thing endless space, your bonuses, they're additive. They're not multiplicative. So if it's not as if you put a plus 100%, right? It's not as if you get sudden you'll get 140. So plus 100% HP. That's like 200%. Think about it as HP. It's not as if you get plus 40% of 200. You just get plus 40% flat. So instead of a ship going from 100 HP to let's say you have an armor module. Your base ship is 100 HP. You add another 100% for 200 HP. This gives you 240 HP. It doesn't give you 280 HP. So it's purely an early game thing, and it's not worth 20 points in my opinion. Similarly, Hull Architects, 1 point on it is great. I'm all for that. 2 points on it means, so 1 point of Hull Architects, right? The +4 ship XP building on Empire means when you build a ship, it starts out as level 2. That gives you +5% attack, defense, all those good things. When you add another 6 XP, or take another point in it, this 10 XP falls short of being level 3. You need another tech or a battle to be level 3. So there's effectively no point in taking it unless you have that tech. But it's not the worst thing in the world. There's a strategy where you can have level 3 ships if you know you're only going to be making ships later, and you're producing all those ships out of the tech component that gives, I think, +6 XP, and a 16 XP does give you level 3 on your ships. And that way, when your ships fight for the first time, they will have plus level 3, which is a +10% rather than 5% bonus to like attack, defense, and everything else. Entrepreneur, similarly, I think is overpriced because it's dust generation. 20 points out of like spending almost a third of your points for dust generation, I think is rather wasteful. Fearless Warriors also is completely useless. If you are being invaded, you will keep on being invaded until you lose your system. In this game, right, system defense is not very important. It's all about winning fleet battles, and that's all there is to it. Early on, there's rushes with kind of regular siege, but otherwise it's just troop invade. And if you lose your fleet, you'll just get insta troop invaded and lose your system. And this is something I learned the hard way in Disharmony. So take that out. And what would I get? So again, United Empire Affinity. And if I were to start with a blank slate, I would get Optimistic to make the most of your bonus production. And next, I always get the standard techs, right? So I'll just add those in. Anyway, fusion plants, xenobotany, compact fusion reactors. I've discussed before, these allow you to it effectively doubles your movement on your colony ship. Or not doubles, but with fast travelers it will double. But also lets you instantly colonize tundra planets and on turn 1 build titanium reactors. So with these extra 24 points, you can just play around with it however you like. Again, I would advise that if you're going for econ, you just go for taking both spendthrifts and merchants. And if you're taking merchants, might as well take 1 point in diplomats. I'll be right back.